Okay, that wasn't fun. What was that? What happened?
Oh, it's always so nice to see one's first brush with a near heart attack game. I'm battle hardened. I've been there. I remember Game 7 against the Sharks.
I mean, I was pretty close to a heart attack, like, through the majority of that game, but is this guy okay? Clear. Why the defibrillator? I was fine. I was just taking a nap. That game took like 2 days. Whew, that was a little bit of a close one, and it was a little bit more exciting than it, initially bargained for, but I'm going to say it nice and quiet this time, because last time when I said it to the back, I kind of tempted the wrath from high atop the thing. Vegas Golden Knights win 5-4 in double overtime to take a 2-1 series lead over the Winnipeg Jets. For the third consecutive game, the Golden Knights went with the exact same lineup, with the exact same goaltender, and this is Laurent Brossoit's first game in Winnipeg in a very long time, if I remember right, and obviously it's his first playoff action in Winnipeg in his former home arena as the road team. So, big nights all around. And, the whiteout in Winnipeg is something else. We think that the Fortress gets a little jumping from time to time, especially in the playoffs. The Winnipeg whiteout has something completely different. It's like half Penn State football game, half, UNC basketball game. It's just bedlam in there. And you know that when that crowd gets jumping, that crowd gets jumping. And so it was kind of imperative that the Golden Knights took the punch out of the Winnipeg Jets nice and early in the game. Clearly, Keegan Colasar didn't get that memo as 15 seconds into the game, it felt like. It was actually about a minute in. He decided to get into a punch-in-the-face contest with Brendan Dillon. Of course, Colasar, I think, won despite getting a couple licks in the head from his own helmet because it just, the strap got stuck. But ultimately, the game got off to a little bit of a punchy start. And, while the blows were being drilled, or while there was blows being exchanged by two players, there wasn't any blows being exchanged on the board. That wasn't until about 2 minutes later when Chandler Stevenson would take a pass from Mark Stone around center ice. Mark Stone's been looking really good, especially since he came back. Game 2, he was a huge difference maker. And now in Game 3, it's 3 minutes into the game, and he's already making a difference. Finds Chandler Stevenson streaking through the neutral zone. Stevenson kind of toe drags it from the top of the circle and wires one past the defender and then past Hellebuyck's glove to give the Golden Knights a 1-0 lead nice and early. And it wasn't super quiet in Winnipeg, but it was at least quieter. Now, the super quiet part would come a little bit later on in the period when the Golden Knights would take a penalty, and then pretty quickly into that penalty kill, the Winnipeg Jets would take a penalty. The 4-on-4 would be rather uneventful. The Golden Knights would go to the power play, and they would begin to set up, especially with that top unit, which has been relatively dangerous, especially after their power play goal in Game 2. Now, what's going on is, Riley Smith takes the puck low in the zone, kicks it up to Pietrangelo, who kicks it back to Smith. Smith runs out of options, throws it back up to Pietrangelo at the top of basically at the top of the key, middle of the blue line, and he fires a one-timer on net. The problem is he kind of whiffed on the one-timer. It's like he chunked a wedge shot, and it just happened to find Chandler Stevenson in the slot, who bumped it over to Jack Eichel on the far boards, and he one-timed it into an essentially vacant cage, Hellebuyck having committed to the shot from Pietrangelo in the first place. Golden Knights score the power play goal, and boom, 2-0 lead. At this point, you can kind of hear a pin drop up in Winnipeg, and that's kind of how the game felt. Obviously, the Jets came out after the Golden Knights took that 2-0 lead, and were pushing relatively hard, and that's to be expected. It's a home game. You're down 2-1, and of course, push comes to shove. It's the playoffs. Crazy bounces are going to happen, and oddly enough, crazy bounces off of feet would kind of be a theme in this game. You had the fan shot on Pietrangelo, clanked around in some skates before finding Stevenson, and you had Winnipeg's first goal scored on what was essentially a kick play. It just happened to hit one of the Winnipeg Jets players out front. I can't remember off the top of my head who got credited with that goal, but he didn't even hit it with the stick. It hit him on the toe, and it just happened to go shelf on Brossoit. It was just kind of a nothing play that was going to go wide of the net, and lo and behold, it's 2-1. And fortunately, the Golden Knights would kind of grab a stranglehold on this game again at this point, and would pretty calmly work their way into the first intermission with a 2-1 lead. This is one of the first times this series rather, that the Golden Knights have had a lead at the end of a period, because it was tied after the second period of game 2, and the only period they had a lead was the final in game 2 when they, finished it out at 5-2. So it's exciting. The Golden Knights are playing a very good game to this point. They did a very good job of limiting Winnipeg's offensive opportunities. I believe they had like 4 or 5 shots in the first period total, to the Golden Knights like 9 or 10. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but it was rather dominant. And going into the second period, that was kind of the theme that was going on too. The game seemed very much under control. And while there were a couple of penalties early on in the second period that did not fall the Golden Knights' way, and the one that did wound up being a very ineffective power play, later on in the period, the Golden Knights would get a break and actually start to work with it on the form of an actually effective power play. And it was a pretty similar play to the one that resulted in the Golden Knights' second goal of the game. It was another play that kind of set up in the neutral zone. It was a few seconds after Eichel had misplayed a puck along the boards that led to a complete zone reset. The Golden Knights gained zone entry, got the puck low, brought it out to the middle. I believe it was Smith again, picked it up to Pietrangelo, back to Smith, back to Pietrangelo, I believe, and then Pietrangelo down to Eichel for the one-timer, who I think caught a piece of Hellebuck on the way by, but still, it got by him. And that's Jack Eichel's second goal of the game, second power play goal of the game, and a Golden Knights 3-1 lead. Now, that would have been good enough, as the Golden Knights were, obviously dominating the play. Winnipeg had only had about 2 shots to the Golden Knights' 9 at the time that Eichel had scored the third goal for the Golden Knights this game. But you just got to keep pushing. It's the playoffs. Anything can happen. A 2-goal lead isn't exactly safe. But a 3-goal lead is much safer, and this is the goal that will be memed until the end of time. Now, Jack Eichel's an incredible player. Obviously, he's got 2 goals in this game. And Keegan Kolesar, while being a good player, is not Jack Eichel. He's not Chandler Stevenson or Jonathan Marchessault or William Karlsson, or what would you consider an elite goal scorer. But he gets on the ice in a transitional period between line changes. Eichel takes the puck in. Kolesar goes with him, drawing some defensive attention. Eichel hits him with the old POP, pass off pads, and Kolesar is there in front, beating his defender to pick up the loose change and tip it past Connor Hellebuck to score the 4th goal for the Golden Knights, put the Golden Knights up by 3, with the score being 4-1. Now, the goal in of itself was very pretty, but what happened after the goal was much more interesting. He scores. He starts looking like he's going to celebrate, and then this. Yes, the stare down to end all stare downs. Keegan Kolesar versus random Winnipeg Jets fan in the front row with the frosted tips. Ultimately, that is where the game would settle down, and the Golden Knights would take a 3-goal lead into the third period. And it seemed like the game was pretty wrapped up. Even I said to myself, and I wish I'd said it out loud because I would have gotten teased till the end of time, I even thought, okay, so we've got a 2-1 series lead already. But you have to play out the remaining 20 minutes, and obviously the Jets knew that. I'm assuming the Golden Knights knew they were a good team, but things tend to get a little bit interesting when you decide to stop playing. The old adage, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. There's a couple of situations where this applied. Obviously, this game, knowing what happened, but I have a better theory. In the locker room, I think the Golden Knights did something like this. Nah, that's too easy. Now this will put some hair on our chests. Yeah, the VGK went full Leafs. You never go full Leafs. The period started with a 3-goal lead, and just as quickly as it started was just as quickly as the Jets began to claw back. Niederreiter sniped it past Pietrangelo, who I believe made a bad defensive play. He had help to the middle, and yet he was still shading to the middle of the ice. One thing or the other, it still was an incredible shot past Brossoit, and, it's 4-2. There's 18 minutes left to go in the game, and it's only a 2-goal deficit. Now, it's still comfortable, and it's still okay. And for good chunks of this for good chunks of this final frame, the Golden Knights were actually playing very good hockey, playing smart defensive. They were playing really good shutdown. However, the Winnipeg Jets were piling on the shots. They had 9 total shots through 2 periods, I believe 9 or 10. And through 10 minutes of the third period, they had amassed a further 15 shots, elevating their total to 25, and pretty much catching the Golden Knights in shot total for the game. So that's not good. And obviously, the dam is going to break eventually. And I'm going to skip over the penalty to Phil Kessel. I know it happened. I know what we all think about it. I have one question to the refs. How is it possible to get a holding the stick penalty when both your hands are above your head? I just don't understand that. But I can't argue with the officials. I'm a random guy yelling at a phone through, you know, I'm sitting here. I didn't go to ref school, but I know what I saw. I'm a little biased, but I know what I saw. Anyway, on the ensuing power play, which again shouldn't have been a thing, but anyway, on the ensuing power play, Mark Scheifele was to score on just another twisted wrister from the circles. Now it's 4-3. The Jets pull Hellebuck, and with about 30 seconds to go, it looks like the Golden Knights have a chance to clear the zone. William Karlsson and Nick Waugh are skating towards a puck that's kind of 50-50. Karlsson gets there, and instead of corralling it for fear of getting blown up by the defender, he just kind of taps it, and if that tap had cleared the zone, we'll never know what happened, but it could have been a lot better. What happened was that tap was intercepted, the puck was moved down, got back up to the other side, to the other defender. Defender puts it on net, and Lowry is there to tap it in for his 4th goal of the series. It's 4-4. The Golden Knights went full leaf. And just a little fun piece of trivia, it was, when this game was being played, it had been 3 years and 364 days since the Golden Knights blew their only 3-goal lead in the playoffs in Game 7 versus the San Jose Sharks. We all remember that game. We don't talk about that game. However, clearly Mark Stone didn't get the memo, as he was about that close from ending the game in regulation for the Golden Knights. He wound up drawing a penalty, which would carry over into overtime, but as has been so often the case with this team, this iteration of this team anyway, the power play hasn't exactly come through in the clutch, and overtime would start, and just as quickly as the power play began is just how quickly it ended. It wasn't very dangerous, and really the entire first overtime was a little bit on the nervy side, as, you know, the Golden Knights had just blown that big lead. The Jets are going crazy. The fans are going even more crazy. I think beer sales were up 200% from a normal night. And so there we were, and, you know, just trying to get through it. And mercifully, the Golden Knights were able to get through it. They were able to be, in some ways, the better team in the first overtime, peppering some good chances on Connor Hellebuck, but ultimately they weren't able to score the eventual game-winning goal. And so the time would expire and we'd go to double overtime. Now we're going to be pressing into some of the longest games in Golden Knights history anytime you get to a second overtime. And at this point, anything can happen and anyone can become a hero. And it looked like the Golden Knights would have a decent opportunity, as really quickly on, Mark Stone would draw a penalty, a really bad knee-on-knee trip, and the Golden Knights would go back to the power play. And while there was a couple of reasonable opportunities, the power play wasn't very dangerous. And so at the very end of the power play, Shea Theodore ranges back into the defensive zone and sends basically a seam pass up the middle of the ice. The puck is tipped in at center and winds up going behind the net. Brett Howden gets in on the forecheck and takes his man out of the play, leaving Sandberg in the corner basically by himself. Sandberg's got Kyle Connor up on the boards by the blue line, and he's got numerous outlets. The only person in his face is Ivan Barbashev. Now, whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, Sandberg decided, instead of rimming it around the boards in either direction to his waiting forwards to commence the breakout, he sends it up the middle. And going up the middle is never a good idea. The puck deflects off of Ivan Barbashev's skate, or shin pad, or whatever, and trickles its way into the high slot, where, of all people, anybody can be a hero in overtime, and Michael Amadio is there. He one-times it, bar down behind Connor Hellebuck, delayed reaction, realizes, oh my god, I just won game 3, throws his hands up in the air, the entire team mobs him in the boards, about 3 seats down from the only Golden Knights fan I saw in the lower bowl on the entire broadcast. Good on you for wearing a gold jersey in that hostile environment. Good on you. Anyway, the game is over. Michael Amadio scores his first playoff goal in double overtime to secure the win. So yeah, that was a little bit more nerving than it needed to be. It was a little bit more scary than it should have been. They were definitely the better team, the Golden Knights, and it showed through a good chunk of that game. They played 4 straight really good periods, being game 2, second period and third period, and then the first and second period of game 3. Those were, 80 minutes of very good hockey, flanked by 40 minutes of not very good. So there's something to correct there, but what's important is that the 2-1 series lead was maintained. Yeah, it's frustrating that it took double overtime to win a game that should have been sewn up after 40 minutes, but that's why you play the games, that's why you play the minutes. The big news to come out of this game, obviously, is that on the Golden Knights side, nobody got hurt, nobody got injured, and nobody played over 37 minutes, despite the game taking to double overtime. And for the Winnipeg Jets side, the big news is they lose Josh Morrissey for the entire series, which is a major blow, not only to their offense, because, you know, he's a incredible player, not only to their defense, because obviously he's a Norris Trophy caliber defenseman, but also just to the morale, both in the locker room and in the fan base, to lose your Norris Trophy caliber defenseman in a game that you clawed all the way back just to lose. And that in of itself is a little bit of a blow, to come back from down 3, to get all that hopes up, be really close to winning the game a couple of times early in double overtime, just to have a fluky bounce end the game and put you down in a hole 2-1 in this series. It's an interesting dynamic, and I wonder what's going to play out in Game 4, because if the goal, this is really the watershed game. A 2-2 series probably benefits the Jets, even though 2 of the next 3 games are in Vegas, and you have to trust their ability to win a home game. But, you know, if the Golden Knights go up 3-1, it's a completely different series. And I know the Knights have so much energy to play, especially with 3 off days coming up after Game 4, with Game 4 following Monday and Game 5 following Thursday back home in Vegas. So there's a lot of things that can happen between now and then, and a lot of things likely will happen between now and then. But what matters is the Golden Knights need to go out and learn on what they did right in the first and second period and wrong in the third period to get them in that situation. Because with this, they've kind of solved the Rubik's Cube that is Hellebuyck putting up 5 on him in back-to-back games. But you're going to have to keep doing that, because, you know, the Jets have also figured out how to start scoring a bunch of goals in droves. Good defensive format is probably the way to go. Good goaltending, and just trusting your forwards, keep putting shots on Hellebuyck, playing for rebounds. Keegan Colasar doesn't have a goal if he doesn't drive the net. That's all I'm saying. But Game 4 is going to be exciting. I can't wait to watch it all along with everybody. It's going to be really exciting. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, be sure to like it. Subscribe if you really like it, or you want to stay up to date with this playoff push and future seasons. Comment down below if you are a Jets fan who's upset, or if you're a Knights fan who hated the penalty on Kessel as much as I did. And I will catch you guys in the next one.